Hey guys, we're out in my yard working on my F250 Super Duty 6.0. I got the turbo off in it. I'm going to pull the intake off, EGR out, fix the EGR, put it back together, and get this thing running again. I already got the turbo off, but I thought I'd start sharing some videos with you guys as far as taking this rest of it apart and then putting it back together. So stay tuned. Hopefully it can help you out taking yours apart. So as you can see, the turbo is gone. Got that out in the garage ready. Charge tubes are off on this side. Next thing to do, I'm just gonna, I really probably don't need to do it, but I'm gonna get the batteries out of the way, give me a little bit more room to work. Get this part of the shroud off. Normally to take the turbo out, I don't pull the alternator, but seeing how we take the intake off, I'm gonna get the alternator out of the way, move the tensioner, and go from there. So there's some really difficult tabs will pop off of this stupid shroud here. I'll fight them. I'll try and get it off so you can see once it's off. But trying to hold this camera, guys, and do this at the same time is a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be, so bear with me. Like I say, guys, you probably don't need to take the batteries out, but I'm taking them out because I'm going to do some little work on the power steering, try and get some other stuff done here while in the process. So I'm going to pull this battery tray out too to give myself a little bit more room. We're going to get this tube removed first. Now that we got the battery out of this side, and then we'll move over to the other side and pull that battery out. Okay, so I got the other charge tube off. Next we're going to do the alternator and this fan shroud. Give us a little more room here. Obviously we're going to have to pull the oil wheel out of there and the pedestal for the turbo, all that fun stuff yet. Okay, so I'm going to start loosening the bolts in the alternator. There's a tensioner down there somewhere. Let's try and see if we can get that tensioner freed up. Most of the guys are just loosening these bolts up and letting the alternator tip forward. That's fine, but I don't know how you're going to get the belt back on when we're done. So try and take a good picture of this so I see how the belt's routed and then start loosening this up. Okay guys, I put the belt back on loosely. I should have showed you this first, but to get the alternator off, first of all I loosened up the fan just to move the fan so I get it forward. The shroud, actually I didn't take the fan off. I was going to, but I think I can move it far enough forward without doing that. Anyway, if you grab a hold of the belt right here, this is your tensioner down here. Here's your tensioner here. If we pull on that belt that pulls the tensioner up, there's a little tab down where my finger is. When you pull that belt out, it pulls the tensioner up, lock that tab in place, and it leaves it locked in. So then we can just slip the belt off. And just drop it down out of the way. Now we can take the alternator off. 1, 2, 3 bolts, 2 on this side, 1 on top, and then we got our wire connectors. So once we got the alternator off, we can take this, there's the wire here was on there. Screw your nut back on it, take the wire out so you know where it's at. If you look at this clip here, somebody's been in here before and obviously broke the tab off. They got the thing zip tied together. We're probably going to want to do that again when we put it back on just to make sure it stays tight, but that's the problem, guys. Just start bending stuff up with screwdrivers and they snap it off. Okay guys, there's no rhyme or reason how to do this. The turbo pedestal has come out, the oil feed tube has come out. Just for a minute or two, we're going to stick that back in there. The fuel line assembly has to come out. We'll get that all out of here, you'll see in a minute. This coolant line for the overflow jug has to come out. So just keep watching, we'll show you how to get it all out of the way. Alright guys, the intake's out, EGR cooler separated. There's everything you gotta take off, pile of nonsense here. We're gonna get this welded up, put some plugs in it, and put it back together. And then put the new turbo on. EGR weld blocked off. And the other one plugged perfectly. So we just set the intake back on. Now we're going to try and focus on getting that clamp tight back there for the EGR tube, and then we can start sucking our intake down. Okay guys, not sure what order this should be going in, but this is how I'm doing it. Get this connector back on for that, and then wrap that back up with that Velcro insulation there. Then I slid this blue fitting on. You slide it on 12 o'clock and then turn it 90 degrees and it locks in place. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put the turbo pedestal back on, and then we're going to put the oil filter and fuel filter housing in. Okay guys, we got this fuel assembly on. There's 4 torques. There's one there. Just we tighten them down, tighten them, go corner to corner, and just do it slowly so you don't snap the ears off. Then this fuel filter is part of that same assembly, so we put our lines back together. Got that all tightened up. Back here, I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if we can get better angle there. See where that exhaust meets there for the turbo. I was fighting that the other night, and I was sitting there thinking about that. Anyway, I was fighting it, and I thought, I tightened the turbo down, the 3 bolts, tighten the turbo down. I'm going to loosen them back up so I can wiggle that a little bit to get that exhaust to pop in. Usually you can hit it with a pry bar a little bit and tweak it, but just so I can get that line up a little better, my clamp will fit on easier. I think that'll make my life a lot easier instead of fighting it so much. Then we'll get that on there. We already got our oil feed line on. It's right here, guys. So there's your oil feed line. Them 2 bolts there, put a new gasket on there. Obviously we have our connector there yet, and then we'll have our down pipe. Be very, very careful with these clips here, the metal clips on your injector. It's easier if you take them out, but be very careful so you don't lose any. I lost one of these stupid things. I've been fighting to find it. So now I'm waiting for one. And we got the intake back on. Obviously we got our get my eyeballs here. Better even block here. Let's back it up. And we've got the intake on here now, which we've had on. Just wanted to show you, get the block off plate there. EGR cooler gaskets back on and back there. So anyway, once we get I'm going to loosen the turbo bolts up, be able to wiggle that turbo, get them clamps on. Once that's on, then I'll tighten them back down, and then we can put the alternator on and the other pipes. But stay tuned. Okay, so we got the clamp back here on. We started plugging our wiring harness in. We got our glow plug connector plugged in here. Make sure we push that tab, red tab, back over so it locks in. Plugged in our glow plug wire in there. Other sensors. Now turbo's all tightened down. I got 1 bolt in the back to tighten down. All the exhaust clamps are on. Then we're going to move on to we got a new oil filter here. We're going to throw that in, put the oil cap on, and then do the alternator next. Okay guys, next thing I gotta do is bolt the thickum back here. 4 bolts, 2 little brackets. Get that on, and I'll show you. So you got 1, 2, and 2 on the other end. I didn't unplug that, I just moved it out of the way. Okay, so we just set the alternator on. We got basically 1, 2, and 3 bolts there. Got your 1 wire connector, and then we got to put our other positive lead on there. So I'll get that tightened down, and then we'll do the belt. Remember, we pulled that tensioner up. We got the pin lock, so it's going to be pretty easy to put on. And we just got to pull up on the belt a little bit more and release the tension. Hey guys, welcome back. We're still working on the Super Duty. While I was in here messing with the turbo and everything else, I picked up a new exhaust back pressure sensor. Got the line. We actually get the little wire pigtail too. We're going to swap that out while we're in here, just to take care of one more little problem while we're in here. Next on the list though is okay, so we got the new exhaust back pressure sensor on. We put a new tube on there as well. And then you see the bright new colored wires, we put a new pigtail on there as well. We want to make sure that's working and controlling everything that it should be. Next we're going to hook up these the boost tubes here. And get our radiator hose hooked up, and I'll get the rest of the turbo. So once again, we're going to get the boost tube here hooked up, and then we'll do the radiator hose and go from there. Hopefully you guys can hear over the fan. Just before I put these boost tubes and stuff on, I just want to say, see these little bellows there, or ribs? You want to make sure we do a good job checking for cracks in them before we put that on. See, it's so bad because it's summertime, but in the winter they really easily crack and they're pretty brittle. Basically, though, we got the air, cold air intake, the other boost tube, half the fan shroud, and the overflow jug, and we're pretty much wrapping this thing up. Everything's back together, guys. Looking good. Did have to tighten the fuel line. Didn't have to tighten up. But anyway, sounds pretty decent. We're gonna pump the tires up and take it for a ride. As you can see, I got plenty of boost again now. This turbo's got a little bit of whistle to her too. Anyway, all I really need to do is put a little zip tie on the one connector for the turbo actuator, because that's a little hokey. Otherwise, pardon my jumping around here, but otherwise all I got to do is get a new clamp for my air filter and the end of my cold air intake, and we're good to go. Besides, of course, the ABS light you guys are seeing there in the dash, that's a wheel cylinder, wheel bearing, but that's on the shelf too, as usual. Have the parts, but I haven't done it.